Hey, YA. So Luke 23 and John 18 and 19 today in our reading. And what strikes me today is the perspective Jesus has, because even though there's so much ahead of him, in what we see in our reading today, he's going through these trials, 6 different trials. And we've got Annas, and we've got Caiaphas on the Jewish side, and we've got Pilate, and we've got Herod on the Roman side. And he's being taught like a game of I don't want him, you take him. I don't know if you played that in elementary or your just parents just threw you back and forth when you were a kid. I don't want him, you take him. That's what it feels like. That Jesus is being going back and forth, and it really seems like both sides want to be rid of the problem that is Jesus, but neither wants his blood on their hands. And so what lies ahead for Jesus is a crown of thorns and flogged more than 39 times. 39 times was the Jewish custom, but the Romans weren't held to that because they weren't Jewish. So Jesus could have been flogged so many more times than that, which is done with a cat of 9 tails, they call it, which is braided pieces of bone and glass in this longer thing, whip basically, but 20 different tails on it, with all these things embedded into it that would just rake across his back with every lash they would give him. And if you think about that, 39 plus times, nails in his hands and feet, and all of these things are before him as he goes through these trials in our reading today, and we see some of that too. But what strikes me again is his perspective, because in John 6, which is an earlier reading from earlier this month, a couple weeks ago or a week ago, John 6, Jesus said, "For I have come not to do my own will, but the will of the one who sent me." So Jesus is acutely aware of what has to happen. Obviously, in the Garden of Gethsemane, he prays, "Father, let this cup be taken from me, but nevertheless your will be done." So Jesus knows what's ahead of him, the baptism of the crucifixion that's ahead of him. But in the midst of all this, as he's going through these trials in our reading today, what strikes me is how calm he stays in the midst of it. Here we are at the pinnacle of human existence. Everything that happened before this, from Adam on, is pointing to this moment. And everything that comes after this time, this age of man, this time that we live in, is pointing back at this, is affected by what is about to happen. And so in the midst of this peak of human existence that Jesus is about to undergo and suffer through, he's calm. He's calm as he answers their questions. He's calm as they accuse him, as they spit on him. Obviously, it's excruciating, the things that he's going through and will go through. But he's calm in the midst of this storm that's happening because of his perspective, because he sees the long picture, because he knows the will of his Father. And we have that ability too. There's going to be things happening, and there probably are, and there probably have been since you have been aware in your life of difficulty, of trials, of circumstances that are not favorable. But in the midst of it, we can learn to have the same peace that Jesus did, because we are not dictated by the circumstances, by the physical circumstances that are happening in our life right now. When we know the will of our Father, when we are in his word, discerning that, when we know verses like he is faithful. He is faithful to do all things through us because we love him. We have those promises that nothing but goodness awaits us in the life to come. And so much goodness in this life as well, if we look for it, if we want to see it. So I love that we can see Jesus's perspective in this difficulty, and the trials that he's going through, in the crucifixion that he's about to endure. But it speaks to, through the Spirit, we can have the same type of peace in our lives, no matter what trials we go through, because Jesus did it, because Jesus did this on our behalf, because he set the example, because he lived it, because he went through every temptation we have. He went through, the worst trials, the worst experiences, the worst temptations. And so he knows what you're facing. He knows what you're going through, and he is with you in it. And so today, I just want you to know that when Jesus says on the cross that it is finished and gives his spirit to the Father, that we have the same ability to understand that it is finished, that we can do nothing to add to what Jesus did on the cross. And we can rest in that each and every day. We can have peace in the midst of any storm. And it's just a wonderful reading today. And I know it's difficult in some parts, but just sit and read it, and just sit and soak in these last few chapters of the Gospels as we go through them, because they shape all of our existence. All right, have a great day, and we will see you again tomorrow.